Hi everyone, and welcome back to Creative Chelsea. If you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up or commenting below. If you want to see more of my videos, press the subscribe button and click on the bell for notifications. If you need any Stampin' Up! Products to make these cards, you can visit my online store and the link is in the description box below. Today I have for you a fun, new, and easy card layout that I found while being on social media this week. I was following the hashtag 30-day card making challenge and came across this really great layout. And I'll go ahead and put a picture of it on screen now. So one thing I like about this layout is that it's very simple, but can be used with so many different things. So for this card, I used it with punches. This card, I used stamps. And then this one, I did punches as well, but I used DSP instead of cardstock. So today I'd like to share with you how I made each one of these cards, and they're really quick and easy, so we'll go ahead and get started on them. So remember that all the products that I've used are listed in the description below, as well as the sizes that you need to cut your cardstock. So we're going to go ahead and start with this card. Now I've got some fun colors for this card since it's a birthday card. We've got Coastal Cabana, Pacific Point, and then we've got a Calypso Coral and So Saffron. And so we're going to just start with this card by doing some punching. And I'm using the balloon punch by Stampin' Up! And we're going to punch both the large and the small in each color. And the reason we're doing this is actually so that we can create two of these cards. Today I'm only going to be making one, but you can easily make a second card with the extra punches. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and draw with a chalk marker some little highlights on these balloons. So I'm just going to do them on the left side, and you just do a little curve where you want that highlight to be. Okay, so I've just done it to the 4 balloons I'm going to use for this card. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp. So I've got a 1/2 inch strip by 2.5 inches, and I'm going to stamp the greeting from Itty Bitty Birthdays, and I'm just going to use this Time to Celebrate. And we're stamping with black ink. And you can use any black ink you want, but I'm going to be using the Memento Tuxedo Black. And just stamp it in the center. Now, if it's a little too crooked for you, you can always just flip it over and try again. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it. On the back of my greeting, I'm going to add some silver metallic thread, just to add a little bit of bling to this card. I'm going to use a snail to add some adhesive to the sides, and then my thread is almost gone, so I'm just going to kind of wrap it around my hand about 5 times, so that's 4. Oh. And then we'll just use the rest of it. And then you just kind of gather the areas you wrapped and press them down onto that adhesive and then tuck in your ends. Okay. All right, so that is ready. So the last thing we need to do before we can assemble our card is I wanted to do some embossing on these cards, just on this kind of the back piece where the images sit. So for this card, I'm using the Settles Embossing Folder, just because I wanted it to be very slight. And I'm just going to run this through the Big Shot and be right back. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and put our card together. So I've just got a card base of Coastal Cabana. I'm going to add to that a piece of Pacific Point. And again, all the dimensions for the cardstock are listed in the description below. And this piece just gets placed at an angle. And then we're going to add our embossed white. And this just gets placed at an opposing angle. And now we get to add our balloons. So just flip each one of those over, add some snail or liquid adhesive, whatever you want to use. And you're just going to start to place those around. And you know what? Before we do that, I'm going to add my greeting. So then I can place these around my greeting. So I've got some dimensionals, and I'm going to go ahead and add those to the back of my greeting. And I just want to place that about 1/3 from the bottom. And I want it to be off my 2 background papers, but not quite to the edge of my card. So then I'm going to place my blue balloon underneath the greeting, and then my yellow one underneath that blue one. And then my Calypso coral kind of comes off above. I want to still see that little tie of the balloon, so not quite all the way under, and then this Calypso coral one kind of all by itself at the top. So that just follows the original layout design. The last thing I want to do would be to add some rhinestones, and these are actually some of the old rhinestones, and they came in a strip, and so I'm just going to cut them apart and add them. But they're just the small size rhinestone that would be in like a new pack. I'm just going to add a couple around my balloons. And then maybe one on top of this Coastal Cabana balloon. And those rhinestones go in this similar placing to the other elements. Okay, so that first card is all done. Okay, for this second card, I'm using some retired products. One of the things is this Lily Impressions Designer Series paper. This was a celebration item for 2020, and I just had some left over, and I thought it would make some beautiful butterflies. And the second retired items would be the punches. Now I'm using some old butterfly punches, but there are currently some beautiful butterfly punches in the annual catalog. So if you don't have something like this and you want to get them, you're welcome to go ahead and purchase those as well. So we're going to be using a piece of the Designer Series paper for our background. And then this is Pool Party. And then we've got Gorgeous Grape as our cardstock for our card base. And then I've got a small piece for the greeting, and then we're using just a scrap piece for punching. And I'm just going to punch 2 of each. So I've got the small one, and then the large butterfly. And I liked this pattern because it kind of gave me a varied look for the butterflies. So it wasn't quite a perfect butterfly look, but I love the dark colors and the fun springtime feeling that these colors give my card. Okay, so the punching's done. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to emboss. So this time I wanted to use the layered leaves embossing folder. This just gives a nice kind of floral, natural look to these butterflies. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through my Big Shot. Okay, so that is done. And then the very last thing, we're going to be stamping a greeting, and I'm going to use this You Make Any Ordinary Day special from the Love of Felt stamp set. We're going to be stamping that in the Gorgeous Grape ink. Okay. So let's go ahead and put this card together. So we're just going to fold along that crease for our card base. lay down the pattern paper in the same way. So just add an angle. Then we're going to add our embossed paper. We're going to do that at an angle as well. We're going to do our greeting, but before we do that, we're going to add some of the rose metallic thread. And you're just doing it the same way. You're going to wrap around your fingers 5 times. And then you can either tear it or cut it. And then we've placed some adhesive on the back. And so you can just go ahead and add that to the card. Okay, so I wanted this to kind of be off to the left a little bit instead of being totally centered. Get your dimensionals and go ahead and add them to the back of your greeting. Okay. All right. So that's going to go in the same place as before. So it's about 1/3 from the bottom. Go ahead and lay that down. And then we're going to add our butterflies. Now I wanted to add them with a little bit of 3-dimensional. So I've folded them in half and then just added glue dots only to the center. And so we're just going to place a glue dot in the center of each butterfly. Okay, so this first one goes over the greeting slightly, not the words, but the cardstock. And we want that blue pattern on top. And then for the small ones, we're using the purple pattern on top. And so we're going to be placing the glue dots on the back side so that we have that purple showing. Go ahead and fold up those wings slightly and then place it on your card. And let's do these other 2 the same way. This one just at a different angle so they look like they're flying. And then that one at top, just in the same places as we put those balloons. The last thing we're going to do, we're just going to add some rhinestones. And I have these retired pink rhinestones. So I'm going to just use these ones. You can use regular rhinestones or you can tint them with a Stampin' Blend marker. This one's pretty large and I'm just going to kind of slide it under the greeting a little bit. And then I'm going to use 2 of these really tiny ones over by these other butterflies. Like that. Okay, so card number 2 is done. Okay, so for our third card, we're going to do some stamping instead of the punches, but we're going to keep them in those same 3 areas. I'm going to be using the stamp set Timeless Tulips, and we're going to be using some different colors and creating this beautiful gradient of color or ombre look with a fun technique. I've got my paper piercing pad, which I use when I stamp with photopolymer images, just to give it a little better image. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my large tulip, and I'm using Mango Melody, and I'm going to ink up my whole image. And then I'm going to open up the the Melon Mambo color, and I'm just going to roll the bottom of that image in that pink ink. And what happens, so this is called kind of like a rock and roll technique. And what's happened is we've just added a little bit of ink to the bottom of that flower. So now I'm going to stamp it, and it's going to go in a similar place as those other images to kind of follow that same layout. So we're going to do that again. I've got the medium size flower. I'm going to start that with the Mango Melody ink, and then kind of rock and roll it with the Mambo. And the fun thing is that every time you do this, you're gonna get a little different look. So you can see how that pink came up mostly on the right side and a little bit on the bottom. And that's just a really fun part of the process of this technique. So the small one next, kind of that same look, just kind of roll it along that bottom and then stamp it. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the Granny Apple Green for our leaf and stems. So start with the stem, and I just have the one that's a little more straight than the other. And I'm just going to begin with this tall one, bring that stem all the way down, and then connect each flower to the bottom of the card with a stem. And then I have a leaf. Now there are lots of different shaped leaves in this stamp set, but I'm just going to keep with one just to keep things simple. And this is just, I don't know, they're all about the same. This one's just a little curvy. It's not as curvy. You can see here, we've got a really curvy one and then more of a straight one. And this is the one I'm using. So the nice thing about these leaves is you can kind of rotate them so that they line up with the stem. So for example, that one, and then we'll go ahead and do another one on this side. And then if you ink it up and then rotate it, you can get one for this flower on the left. Okay, just like that. The last thing we need to stamp is the greeting, and I'm using the Get Well Soon, and I've got it in Melon Mambo. And this just comes from that stamp set as well. Just ink it up and place it in the center. This is just a 1/2 inch strip that's about 2.5 inches long. Oh, that did not ink up well. So we're gonna go ahead and flip it and try again. Okay. So now all of our stamping is done. And I'm going to go ahead and do a fun technique, and that is to put my stamped images through the embossing folder. I'm going to be using the Subtles embossing folder again. So it kind of just gives the stamp images kind of a fun look, kind of like it's been stamped on some sort of canvas paper. So I'm just going to place this inside and then run it through my Big Shot. Okay, so that's all done. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some rose metallic thread to the back of our greeting. And I've got some adhesive on the back. I'm just going to wrap that around my hand, just like we did before. And this time I'm just going to place it down so that that circle gets a little bit looser. And I'm going to add my greeting in the center and then just tuck in those ends so that we don't see them. And then I'm just going to add the dimensionals to the back. Okay, so now we're ready to put our card together. I've got a card base of Granny Apple Green, and then I've added a piece of the Lily Impressions Designer Series paper, the same one that I used for the butterfly. This is just another pattern from that pack. I really liked how it had the green and it was kind of painted on. Just love that look. So then we're going to add our stamped images. And we're just going to do that at an angle as well. And then add our greeting in the same kind of place, about 1/3 from the bottom. And then the last thing, we're going to add some rhinestones. And this time I'm going to use the champagne rhinestones. And I'm just going to place them in the same places that I have on the other cards. So we've got one down here, and then one near this flower, and then another one here at the top by this flower. Okay, so that card's all done. I hope you have enjoyed learning this fun new layout with me today. It is so versatile and easy, I hope you give it a try. Follow and participate in the hashtag 30-day card making challenge for more great card making ideas. Have a creative day. Bye.